Yo, what's up, everybody? This is your boy Hill Carmichael, and welcome to another installment of Hill Thoughts. And this topic is wrestling related, and I want to talk about looks versus talent, which was more important. And I always want to talk about this topic since Sami Zayn won the WWE Championship at Night of Champions over the weekend, and it pretty much split the fans. Like one fans who love it, other fans they not too sure about it. But this is the first time I hear this conversation. It's been talked about through comments, podcasts, group page, wrestling page, you name it. Everybody's talking about it, and for me as a purist, I'm more into what you do in the ring. And of course, people, they do care uh, what you look like. They care about the microphone, the whole promo thing, in which that'd be a whole another topic. I wish I will dive in that one in the near future. But for the longest, for the longest time, me being a pro wrestling fan, I always say pro wrestling fan. I don't care what you look like. I don't care what you look like, what you sound like, and I don't care about your mic skill. It's all about what you do in the square circle. Because when the bell rings, what you do in that match, what you do in the ring, what kind of move you can pull, that draws the attention towards the crowds. That's draw more attention towards people who want to see your product of any promotion, either indies, uh, top 20 promotion you could think of. That's what counts the most. But with this one, ever since Sami Zayn won, people really don't believe him. And my thoughts is of this whole situation is what's really more important, either your looks or your talent. And in my humble opinion about this, your talent is more important than your looks. I'm gonna give you some great examples, and only in pro wrestling we judge by the looks. For me, when I see who's the best wrestler right now, I consider Kenny Omega, Will Ospreay, Zack Sabre Jr., even the legend like Hiroshi Tanahashi, Okada. Even look back in the '90s during the New Japan days. Even Scott Norton. Those guys I like because, of course, they great in the ring. Now, looks looks is kind of like secondary to me. Like I could give you a good example. Walter. That back then Walter was a big boy because if you see his face, you see his body, he's very, very intimidating. He's very threatening, but he can wrestle his ass off. He could give you some bangers. But the moment he lose that weight, you kind of look at him different. But it's been washed away by his talent and washed away by his match, and which has happened before in WWE during the NXT UK. He pulled the bang of the match, and by his size, he's very intimidating. I could give you the match between him and Dragunov with NXT UK, one of the greatest NXT UK title match of all time in that short period. And then you look at hell, even Dragunov. Yes, he may look small, but he don't fit the mold of what the wrestler look like. He may be fit for the cruiserweight title or the mid card title, but in his match, in this style, he give you that main event level, and people appreciate him. Like people like me or people who are a purist, they appreciate it. But the main roster or the uh, the mainstream fans, they look at him and say like he's too small or he don't fit the mold of a professional wrestler. And you still get that people who think that way to this day. And I never forget it because last year I even pushed for Sami Zayn to become the world champion or next person to become the world champion. But based off his looks, people call him homeless. He looked like he smelled like pee. He he looked like a gingerbread. Shout out to Trick Williams. All kind of shit. But people forget that he's a dope ass wrestler. He wrestled in Ring of Honor. He pulled up a bang of a match. And let's not forget, he used to be a Ring of Honor world champion as El Generico. Let's not forget about that. But with our mindset, during the during the '80s, back in the day, like those were like the larger than life persona. You look up guys like Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, Ultimate Warrior, big muscle dudes with a loud persona, but you don't really remember their matches. You remember the explosion, the excitement. People remember some matches. People the likes of Macho Man, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, Bret Hart back in the day, or even Rick Rude back in those days. But people, when you look at pro wrestlers back in the day, when you mention wrestling, you think of big muscle dudes, in which that's their mindset from the '80s, who grew up during that days, or should I say, the golden days of pro wrestling. But as the years have changed, the body and the image have changed along the way of pro wrestling. In the '90s, during the time where you got ECW and WCW and WWF entering the new generation era, look at ECW. None of those guys look like a pro wrestlers. Like they're not muscular. They're not big. They're not large in life. They are everyday blue collar wrestlers or people you see on the street, uh, at your job. Those everyday people. Yes, you guys like Taz who look like who come up from UFC in their earlier days, or you could look at guys like the Sandman. You can look at guys like Spike Dudley, New Jack, Balls Mahoney, Action Rotten. All those guys who don't look like a pro wrestler, but they can relate to the people and pull up a banger of the match. But you got people who was athletic, who built like a wrestler or built like a superstar, like Shane Douglas, Ron Van Dam, Chris Candido. Hell, even who can think of even Mike Awesome, the Gladiator FMW Mike Awesome, even that, and even Masato Tanaka, those guys who look like a athlete. Then you look at the guys like WCW who still got the larger than life persona, but you got smaller people like Rey Mysterio, Humberto Guerrero, Dean Malenko, Billy Kidman, who's small and may fit in the cruiserweight division or fit their part, but they don't fit in a pro wrestler form who look like a main event who could be in the main event spot, like Vader, Ron Simmons, Sting, Booker T, uh, DDP, Evie Kevin Nash, and Sting, those guys. And if you look at WWF during the Attitude Era, of course, everybody is larger than life guys like Steve Austin, Triple H, The Undertaker, Kane, The Rock, all those guys. As the years grew or the years involved, you see different faces, different wrestlers, and then you fast forward to the ruthless aggression era, the Indies like Ring of Honor. Those you know big persona, those big guys, the big bodybuilder type, it don't fit the mold anymore. Some do, like Brock Lesnar, Scott Steiner, other guys, and Brian Cage, those guys, but they don't bring in the matches. They don't bring in the moment that bring attention to that promotion. If you could look up like Ring of Honor, there's not too many big guys out there. There guys like who'd be a great example. Of course, Samoa Joe, Brian Danielson, who pulled up a bang of a match. AJ Styles, the young CM Punk. Those guys is small, but they or well, Samoa Joe not small, but those guys who got big enough talent, they can overlook their looks, if that makes sense. Because anybody with an old school mind, they'll look at them saying like, I can't take this guy serious because they need to pull some muscle. That's something I've been hearing that a lot, all the time. Well, he's a good wrestler, but if you put on some muscles, yeah, he will be a main eventer. I hear that all the time. I hear that all the time. and that's something that's been going around for a long time with with different fans. I remember when I had this discussion with a wrestling friend of mine, and during the time AEW was getting popular earlier time, and we're talking about if you mention these guys' name to the audience, they don't know who they are. And I mentioned Darby Allin, and he asked me like, "Do you think he's a main event level?" I said, "Yeah, because I think about his match. Yes, he got a different look, but if you look back at his matches has always been great, never been a dull moment." And he said, "Do you believe he become the world champion?" At the time, yeah, I see the same thing. And he said, "Well, if he become the world champion soon, then he need to pack on some muscle." And I'm like, "Nah, he don't need to change nothing." And I say that because why every time a smaller person who pull up a banger match or someone who's relatable needs to put on a muscle, who needs to change? That's the question. It's been going around for a very long time, and throughout the whole time, it's been unanswered. Of course, people have a different answer for that question, but that question's always popped up. And I always think about that. Why always in the world of pro wrestling you need to look like you came from WBF just to become a main event? All my people out there who watching this world building federation that used to be part of the WWF back in the 80s and the early 90s. Trust me, they promoted on the Coliseum home videotape. Or you can check it out on YouTube. But but that question been popped up all the time because only in pro wrestling they always bring that up. You don't hear that in mixed martial art. The only time MMA bring it up if that person want to move up the weight or move down the weight. That's it. You know, when you look at guys in the heavyweight division, you never hear somebody say, "Oh, that dude need to share some muscle. Or that person need to lose some weight." I can give you one good example. Ron Nelson, who used to be in UFC in the heavyweight division back in the day. The first time I saw him, he was in a UFC Ultimate Fighter heavyweight season. Big boy, but he could throw some haymaker, and people love him because he's a big, chubby dude, and you can root for him because he's very relatable over some muscle guy like Frank Mir and who was a heavyweight guys at that time, Frank Mir or Gigan Dos Santos or Canelo Alves, those guys. But you look at the world of pro wrestling, people want to pick their top guys who got the looks. People could pick out Batista, Brock Lesnar, Bobby Lashley, all those guys because they got the look, got the muscles. Can they put up a best match? Of course. Depends on who they were wrestling with. I can give you a good example to someone who got the look but they can't wrestle for shit. I'm gonna bring some old names. Well, who here remember this wrestler named Bronkus? Yes, that's an old school name, and that happened in the WWF, and he used to wrestle for ECW at that time. I think he related to the Hart family or part or affiliate with the Hart Foundation. He was part of the Hart Dungeon. Bronkus was the big muscle dude in the earlier days of WWF, probably like the eve of the Attitude Era. He came through. I thought he was the next big thing, no pun intended. But his matches was not that great. His matches was not that great, and I remember him going to ECW. He didn't do so well, and they rejected him from the wrestling world. And then, and then fast forward or different era, we look at guys like Will Ospreay and Ricochet. Instead of appreciate their talent, they look at them too, say, okay, why does two gymnastic guys flying around the ring? This is not wrestling. This is ballet. And people been saying that. Even Raiders say that shit. Jim Cornette said it. You know, everybody else said it. And instead of appreciate their talent, They always judging by their looks. If you keep doing that, you will bypass their talent, and the other promotion will see that and take it and make that person a superstar. Not only that promotion will make that person a superstar, but they make that promotion the most watched because everybody's want to see that talent and see who else in that promotion because that one person based off that talent over their look. Now there are some situations that looks have pushed them to the moon. Um, I can say the good example I can think of right now is I want to say Nakia Lion. Whenever we talk about the women's side, Nakia Lion, Sable, and Mandy Rose. But Mandy Rose can wrestle, but we all knew why she get that push. Like, of course, the women at WWE they look good. I'm not knocking for that, but you got some women who don't look apart, and the women fit. Like the big example, I will go back to the people I brought up. Mikal Lockwood, who's in NXT, she built like the 1990s version of China because she's a strong woman. She don't fit the part, but she looked like she looked like a bodyguard back in the 90s. That's what she looked like. So that's the number one thing. But back to the women I brought up. Sable. She was a multiple time women champion. Not because of her talent, because of her looks. And that look got her so far, they put her in Playboy. Not once, but twice. And this one with the second time was with Tori Wilson, I believe. And then you look at Mandy Rose. Mandy Rose, she was a good talented wrestler in NXT. She was a double champion in NXT and NXT UK, the last woman who held that title. And she was so popular, she got her own OnlyFans, but at the time NXT they don't play that shit. They really don't. And once they find out, they strip that away and they release her. But her looks got her so far, but along with her talent, so she could do both. Another one, Nakia Lyon. Now with her, in the beginning, during the NXT days, I was one of those people who pushing for her to get that to get that title. The reason why? The looks. Now can she wrestle? She's okay. And I see she won the title and involved, but she's an okay wrestler, but her looks got her that far. Even Booker T mentioned that her sex appeal was um was overshadowing her talent, at which that's the truth. So with that, she she changed up her sex appeal and she become more focused on her talent and that pays off and she become the Evolve Women Champion. Now let's talk about the biggest thing right now is Sami Zayn become the WWE champion. I'm a big fan of Sami Zayn. He's a good wrestler, dope wrestler. See him through Ring of Honor when he wrestled against Kevin Owens, following him through NXT and through the main roster. Seeing him winning every single title you could think of. The Intercontinental Championship, United States title, the Tag Team title, with him and Kevin Owens against the Usos in the main event of WrestleMania Night 1. The first time ever the Tag Team title is the main event. That was very huge, not only for WWE, but for wrestling history, for having that. And then finally capturing the WWE Championship. I thought it was a good thing, but people in not only the wrestling community, but the industry who used to be in the WWE, not WWE, who used to be in the wrestling business had a problem with it because he don't fit the look. Because he don't look like a pro wrestler. He look like someone who was a janitor for high school, someone who just don't fit the mold. Even Vince Russo disrespect Sami Zayn, saying it's a joke. This title look like a toy. It's like Devin Arquette winning the World Heavyweight Championship all over again. And it's funny it came from the same guy who was running WCW, in which that's hilarious. But Sami Zayn, the reason why he earned that title because he busted his ass, he worked hard, he's a very talented guy. Mic skills, which I don't care about, but in the ring, he's a hard worker. He's the hardest worker in WWE, next to AJ Styles, next to anybody else. You can throw that name in. But for me, I prefer talent over looks. Yes, looks is part of it, but it's not all in all to be all. Because if you can carry around look like a, if you just want to be like a model, whatever, you could be a great, good looking person, be like a valet or be like a manager, and that's it. That's the only thing I can see that with their looks. But if you want to be a competitor, if you want to step foot in the ring, your talent is way more important than your looks. And I feel like talent is should be the number one priority. When the bell rings, that's where it matters most. That's where the fans pay their hard-earned money to see what you can do in the ring, and can you make me feel happy? Can you make me, shed some tears? Can you, I want to feel some emotion when that bell rings. I can't feel no emotion by your looks. It don't work that way. When the bell rings, I want to be happy. I want to go back and tell my friends, hey, go watch this promotion because this person is a one hell of a wrestler. I'm not gonna tell my friends like, hey, come check this out because this person look good. It don't look right. So, in my humble opinion, from the beginning, I'd rather choose talent over looks because talent bring you to the stage, not your look. Because if you rely on your looks, then the fans will notice it, and they will turn on you, just like how they did with the Billet Twins. Well, that's my that's my thoughts of it. I hope you guys enjoy this video. I hope you guys share, like, comment. If you want to support this channel, drop some coins into my cash app when the link's going to show us up on the end of the video. I'm your boy Hill Carmichael. That's another Start My Hill Thoughts. Until then, I see you guys next time. Bye.